let's start first. Blake, one of my good buddies, but someone I look up to a ton. In today's podcast, in-person live podcast, I want to do a few things. One, I want to get to know your journey a little bit more of how you got into scaling. I want to hear about the formula of scaling.com and the ins and outs of it all. So, Blake, first question, tell us a little bit about yourself. And then also on that, I want to hear the story of what you were doing even before scaling.com, the science of scaling.
Cool. Can I set a goal for the time here?
Of course.
So there's this concept in sports called having a career year. Anybody heard that before? And my belief and my hope is that every individual in this room in 2026 has a career year. And to put in perspective, if you think about a good example of a career year would be Michael Phelps in 2008. 8 gold medals, 7 world records, just had a year that defined the rest of his life. The definition of a career year is you accomplish more in a year than you ever have before, but also it's the year that defines your entire future. And so I'm just such a believer that you could absolutely transform in 1 year. Your business could absolutely transform in 1 year. And I'm committed and hoping that today, that is the outcome of what we get to talk about. So Blake Erickson, live in Mapleton, Utah, and I feel incredibly blessed. My wife is here. She's amazing. Her name's Bree. We have 2 boys. We have 1 on the way. So we'll have 3 boys under 3. And it's a handful, and it's been an absolute blessing. Other than that, I'm 27 years old. And in May, we launched a company called scaling.com, and that's my only focus. And that is what I spend all my time on and nothing else, from a business standpoint. And what we're committed to doing within our company is normalizing scale. And there's a distinction that I hope everybody understands between growth and scale. And the way that we see scale, and we hope that scale gets defined, is rapid and massive growth in a short amount of time. And so growth has been normalized year over year. If your company grows 15, 20% this year, that's called growth. And people are generally pretty happy about that. The way that we see scale is if you're not doubling or tripling your company every single year, you're not scaling. And so we want to normalize scaling. We want to normalize insane yet smart and rapid scale. So that's what we do from a business standpoint. A year and a half ago, I was doing door-to-door sales, and a little over a year and a half ago, and was working with just some amazing people. Had done it for 5 years and had just an amazing time, was very fulfilled and learned so much from it. But just like a lot of things, I'd gotten to a point where it becomes somewhat monotonous and the learning started to decrease. I don't know if any of you ever felt that before. You've been in a job. It's like, okay, I feel like I'm now going through the motions. And so when that started happening, I started realizing, man, I've gotten so comfortable and my learning's decreased so much. I got to go start thinking about what is the next thing. And I was committed to figuring out, how do I go do something a whole lot bigger? What would be the biggest jump, the biggest game that I could possibly play, but still impact a lot of people and do something that fires me up and gets me really excited? Around this same time period of having these thoughts and kind of considering what's next, it was April of 2024. I got an impression from God. And I say that seriously because it's not something that's happened to me frequently in my life. But I felt God nudge me and he said, Blake, I need you to call Ben Hardy. And who Ben Hardy was to me was a guy that I'd met 3.5 years earlier. And at that time, when I got this impression, he was one of the top authors in the world, business authors in the world, specifically on entrepreneurship and business strategy. And we had kept in touch. I had him come speak to some of our sales reps a couple of different times. And so I was like, okay, I'll do it. but I forgot to do it. A week later, I get the nudge again. It's like, hey, you got to call Ben Hardy. Forgot to do it. And then a third time, it's like, hey, you got to call Ben Hardy. And so I stopped what I was doing. I remember exactly where I was. I was in this office, kind of overseeing this basketball court. And I called him and he answered on the second ring. And it was quick and I was not expecting it. And I didn't know what I was going to say. I just said, hey, I felt like God wanted me to call you and I just want to be a resource and an asset to you. And I'm not sure what that looks like. And he said, and me being a sales guy, I'd love to hear this. He was like, yeah, I'm open to doing something like that with you. And at the time he was exploring doing business with a guy named Russell Brunson, if anybody knows who that is, and had a handful of different other people that he was kind of vetting out if he should do a collaboration with. But since the door was open, I started just being incredibly persistent, just like door to door teaches you. And so over the next 5.5 months, we kept talking and talking and talking, and eventually got to a point where we started talking about building a business together and what that could look like and the people we could impact and what would the focus be. And some days he'd be fired up about it and some days he wouldn't. And so eventually in August, I just said, hey, I'm going to fly out to you. I'm going to pitch you this idea and let's either fully go forward with it or let's not go forward with it. So I flew out to Orlando, where he lives, August 28th of 2024. And I pitched him this idea of saying, hey, everyone in the world is talking about scaling right now. And if anybody can hack it, I believe it could be us. And if anyone has created amazing thought already around this concept, it's you. And so let's go dominate business strategy. Let's go dominate what scaling actually is and create a solution for it. And so he loved that idea. He was fired up about it. And the whole intent was, let's go help as many entrepreneurs as possible go see amazing growth. Because if a company can scale, that means they're making more money. They can employ more people. Those people are making more money. That means that money can serve more people, can be given to more people. It's literally the most exponential way to serve the world. And at the end of the conversation, he said, okay, yeah, like I'm super excited about doing this. And I said, but I have one more request for you. I said, if we're going to do this together, I want to co-author this next book with you so that we can position ourselves well and I can have credibility. And that shocked him. And I remember when I said it to him, I was kind of sweating and he literally went silent for like 30 seconds. And I could see him thinking, and he said, you know what, that's not a bad idea, but here's the issue. I've been building my audience for 12 years. I've written 8 books and it's like blood, sweat, and tears for me to get here. And I just don't feel right about giving that up. Unless if it came at a price. I'm like, I didn't come here to negotiate. Like you tell me how we make it happen. He said, in order for me to feel like we can go fully in on the business and then write books together, it'll cost you $1 million. And I said, okay, let me call my wife. And we definitely did not have $1 million at the time. But call my wife. It was a 2-minute conversation. I'm not kidding. It went like this. Hey, she's like, how'd it go? He wants $1 million to do it. She's like, sick. Let's do it. Let's roll. So text him back. Yeah, give it up for her. So I texted him back and said, okay, let's do it. Let's roll. And so that was August 28th, 2024. And from there until March, kind of May-ish, we were just kind of building the initial concept of the business, finishing writing the book that's sitting on your guys' chairs. And it's been an amazing journey. So that's the origin story of scaling.com and the science of scaling.
I love it. Give it up for Blake. That's insane. And guys, the reason that story hypes me up so much is because Blake had an insane amount of success prior to all this, right? He had a gorgeous home. You had multiple rental properties, right? There was a lot going for you. And there is I feel like I'm feeling this personally. Like you get to a certain point and you get comfortable with certain things, whether it's a lifestyle, whether it's income, your expenses grow a little bit. And like hearing you drop a million and you had to sell some assets to get to this million, right? After all you had built at a young age, and just to have the conviction to go all in, that's what hypes me up about you, Blake. Because imagining myself doing that in that situation now, like, is so scary. But obviously, like, it's worked out for you. And like, another shout out to Bree of just being so willing to do that. Luckily, my wife Morgan has a very similar support system that she trusts me to go all in, and there's no way I would be able to do what I do without that. And so just having that, like, sometimes I stress more about what I'm going to do with my life, and my wife's like, you'll figure it out. And it's hard to measure that. So you guys are amazing. And I appreciate that a lot. And now that leads me to my next question, Blake. There's a lot of people that want to scale, I'm sure, right? Like, raise your hand if you want to scale a business. It's got to be everyone, the room, right? And for you listeners online too, like, I can guarantee at some point in your life you want to scale something, but the sacrifice that it takes to get there, and this is where we're going to introduce some more of the items of scaling.com and the science of scaling, because to me it feels like such a sacrifice. But we're going to dive more into that. What advice do you have for people that might be in that scenario wanting to, but it might entail something big like that?
So the way that I lived my life, and I would assume the way that a lot of you have lived your life around specifically goal setting up until this point, was I would look at what I had done in the past, and then I would set goals moving forward according to how I performed. Anybody do the same? So if you made 100 grand last year, maybe your goal this year is to do 150,000 bucks. Or if your business did $2 million revenue, maybe your goal this year is to do $3 million. And so there's a lot of just fallacies around goal setting. And one of the common ones is the best goals are the most realistic goals. And that is the most untrue and false thing that's ever been said. And I'll prove it to you. I'll prove it to you why. Right here. Right here. Okay, thank you. I'll prove it to you why. So, consider your business today. Consider how much you did in revenue in 2025. So hopefully everybody has that number in their head. So let's say you want to grow your business or you want to scale your business. And so you set a goal for 2026. And we'll use the example that you did $1 million in 2025. And so in 2026, you're going to go do $1.3 million of revenue. If all of us set goals like that, which is how I used to set goals, does it require any change of you today, or does it require you to just do more of what you're currently doing? More
of what you're doing.
And so the issue is goals are meant to stretch us. They're meant to create the best out of us. Goals are simply just a tool to get us to perform at the absolute highest level possible, to make the best decisions, to apply the best leverage, and to implement the best strategy. And so when I started to look back at my life and anything that I had done or achieved that was significant, I was never operating from what I would call a linear goal, a goal that just required more. I was operating from a goal that was so big that I couldn't just do more. I had to do something different. I had to do something a whole lot better. And I had to do it in a way that it hadn't been done before. And so take the same scenario. Let's say you did let's say you did $1 million last year in revenue. And in 2026, we want to get to $5 million of revenue. Now, can we do the exact same thing that we did in 2025? Of course not. And so then that allows us to begin finding better pathways, better leverage, better people to put and implement into our business that we wouldn't have before, because we were operating from a linear goal or a linear frame. And now that we're operating from an exponential frame or an exponential goal, it requires exponential pathways, exponential leverage. And that, my friends, if you can just understand that moving forward, everything in your life is going to shift. A goal is a tool to help you perform in the best way that you possibly can, to help you make the best decisions, apply the best leverage, the best strategy. And if you're setting linear goals, it's allowing you to tolerate bad decisions, bad strategy, and not apply good leverage. If you're setting exponential goals, it forces you to solve a bigger problem. Solving how to get to 5 million in a year is a much different equation to solve than how to get to $1.3 million in a year. Tony Robbins in our Ford last thought here. He said business scaling in your business is 80% psychological. And what he's saying is what happens up here is actually a lot of the times what gets translated in the results. And so solving the problem up here is actually where scaling begins. But operating from a bigger frame is the fundamental foundation, the first step that everybody has to in order to solve a bigger level game.
I love it. And guys, I was at Business Mastery with Tony Robbins this year, and it was my first Tony Robbins event. And there's obviously a lot of hoorah, and I'm like, what am I doing here? But this is cool at the same time. Just kind of sinking in my chair. And then at the very beginning of Tony Robbins' presentation, they throw up the book, The Science of Scaling, and Blake Erickson his name is right there in front of thousands of people. And that just gave me I was like, oh, we're only a connection away from Tony Robbins. I can be a little bit more comfortable in my chair. But that was a cool moment. Like, Tony Robbins obviously gave the foreword for this book, but was also speaking of this at a very high level in front of thousands of people at Business Mastery. So just to show the power of this book. But Blake, on that same note, when you're talking about these goals, I've heard you say something about realistic goals versus thinking big in your goals. Can you expound on that? Which I feel like you kind of just did, but in that verbiage itself.
Yeah, just to echo more of what I just talked about. Realistic goals don't require any more of you except for you to spend more time on what you were already doing. And we would call that bad strategy. What we would call good strategy is setting a goal so big that forces you to think in ways that you haven't thought before. That forces you to think, hey, is the model that I currently have in my business scalable to the level that I want to get to? Are the people that I have in my business the people that are needed in order to get to the level that I want to get to? Are the pathways that I'm deploying or focusing in on the pathways that can get me to the next level? Let me give you an example. We have in our program, we have people of all different industries. In particular, this is a man named Steven, and he owns a leadership education company. And so he helps and coaches leaders. In 2024, he did $500,000 of annual revenue. And when he came into our program, his goal was to do $5 million of revenue in 3 years. And so a 10x goal from where he was currently at. And so one of the first things that he considered was, is my current product program offer the offer that can get me to 5 million? And looking that he was a coach, the biggest bottleneck that he faced was himself. And so he was selling a $25,000 to $50,000 coaching package. And so if he wanted to get to 5 million, he would have to sell 100 to 200 of those packages just to get there. And because he's a one-man show, there's no way that he could possibly do it. So reverse engineering, solving the goal, two thoughts came to mind. One, I go get more coaches to be able to get to 200 people within my program. Or two, I could change my model and have a much higher priced offer. And so he changed his offer from 25,000 to 250,000. Just 2 weeks ago, he sold 3 people in 1 week his $250,000 new offer. And so what he did last year, he did that times 1.5 in 1 week, just solely by thinking, not realistically, but by thinking from an exponential future, from a new future that caused him to think and really consider his current situation and see, okay, this is optimal, this is not optimal, this is scalable, this is not scalable. But he would have never found those pathways or considered them if he wasn't committed to a bigger goal, if he wasn't committed to actually scaling exponentially. And so those are the byproducts that happen when you truly begin operating from a much bigger future, a much bigger goal. And that, my friends, is why you should always think big and not realistic.
Amen. Blake, you've obviously practiced this yourself. You've obviously seen thousands of people do this in your guys' training. What internal systems do you feel like these people have? Are they're when it comes to routines, when it comes to belief, etc., like the tactical side, what are these people doing that are actually having success in scaling?
You'd be surprised. The answer to that is tactically, they're not doing anything out of the ordinary. And you'd be surprised how some random Joe Schmo that we absolutely love can take a company to 50 million or 100 million, and there's nothing super special about it. But he gave himself permission to think that big and solve a bigger goal. I would say one of the biggest levers that typically people pull, the lowest hanging fruit, is just looking internally at their team. Because I think the greatest leverage that you have in your business or in your life is the people that are working within your system. And so oftentimes one of the first things that people do, is they look internally and say, are these people that I have, can they get me to that massive goal that I just set? And oftentimes the answer is no. And that means that they got to go replace them with people that can. And just by bringing the right capability in your business is going to skyrocket your business more than anything else that you can do. And so that's a common pattern that you'll see is people that are scaling do not scale with B players. Period. People that are scaling definitely do not have C players on their team. You'll find every time those that are scaling only have A players and they only hire A players. Now, a lot of you might be saying, but what if you hire a B player and we want to get them to an A player? If you're going for growth, you can do that. If you're going for scale, you cannot. We don't have time. You don't have time to develop them. And majority of the time, by the way, they don't pan out. You hire a B player, you're hoping they turn into an A player. 8 times out of 10, it's just not going to happen. And so you become a fragile system. You're a fragile business because you're now basing your business off of a hope, off of developing someone. That development might take 6 to 8 months. What if you could find the A player today that brings the capability, that brings the knowledge that you already need? You just bought back 8 months. The most expensive thing in your business is having the wrong people. The greatest return in your business is having the right people. And so that's my one plug, looking internally. Those are the things, small things that people do right. And it's a leader that says, hey, I'm going to have a really high floor on who comes in, but I'm willing to and committed to bringing people in that are better than I. And that's difficult for a leader because all of a sudden when that happens, our ego gets engaged. It's like, no, but I need to be the best. I need to be the main guy. But if you can take your ego out of it and you can be focused on bringing the right people in that are better than you, man, the sky's your limit on how fast and how quickly you can scale.
A gem. Okay, now we talked about people that maybe have a business currently, they have employees, they can look internal. What about the people that maybe are at the beginnings of their career? Maybe they're in their career, but nowhere near where they want to be. How can you apply scaling.com, the science of scaling, to those people?
When I was 20 years old, I sat in a room with my mission president. For anybody that hasn't served a mission president is the person, he's like the CEO over 150 to 200 missionaries. And they're usually these really successful people that have kind of retired early and can go and spend all their time focused on helping missionaries and preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. So I was 20 years old. I was sitting with my mission president, and he asked me some questions I'd never considered before. And these are questions that we've all been asked, but it was the first time for me. And the questions were simply, what do you want out of life? Where do you want to be in 5 years? What do you want to accomplish? What do you want to have? Where do you want to be in 10 years? Who do you want to be? And for the first time in my life, I started like really considering, man, what do I want out of life? Where do I want to be in 5 years? What do I want to have? Who do I want to be? 20 years, what does that look like? And they just cast this vision, and for the first time in my life gave me permission to like dream. And what that did for me is I came home from a mission on fire because I just experienced the greatest joy in my life teaching about Jesus Christ. It was amazing. I just want to keep doing it for the rest of my life. But it replaced kind of a new vision and a new purpose within me. And it set some big goals. One of those goals was by the age of 26, I want to be a multimillionaire. So that was a goal that was so far out of reach. I had no idea how to accomplish. I had nothing. I came home in my mission. I invested in a Ponzi scheme. So I had I had $2,500. I put all of it into this Ponzi scheme. So I had $0 essentially when I came home. And, but I set that goal and I wrote it down on a note card. And so here I am, net worth is 0. And I'm saying, I'm going to go be a multimillionaire by 26. So I got 5.5 years to do so. And that goal was so important to me because it was such a useful tool for my life. It filtered everything that I did, who I spent time with, what books I read, what I did, what I did not do, what I listened to, the podcasts, who I tried to network with, what opportunities I said yes to, what opportunities I said no to, everything for 5.5 years. And so to answer, I say that example to answer Tanner's question, which is start there. Start by creating a future so big that it can filter everything that you do in the present, that it can drastically change everything that you're doing today to make sure that you end up getting to where you want to go. You would be surprised. I think we all probably think we know what we want. But if I actually went to each one of you and said, hey, what do you want? Like truly, what do you want? I'm guessing 2 people in this room would actually have a phenomenal answer for me. And so start there. And it's not only just about knowing what you want, it's about making it big enough so that it actually changes you today in the present. And that's how you know if it's a useful tool or not, is if it shapes and changes you today.
I love it. Blake, I mean, I'd love to hear, you guys are teaching a lot of people about scaling. What does scaling.com, like, what does it look like on the internal side of them actually putting this to practice?
Tell me more. Tell me more.
Like,
asking.
You guys are obviously trying to scale a business. And you're teaching people how to scale a business, which is a cool phenomenon, right? What does scaling look like within your company?
Yeah, it's so fun because we get this opportunity where the things we learn today, we get to teach all of our members tomorrow, and we get to learn by trial and by success. And so it's so fun. I want to do something a little unique. I want to ask Morley Bennett, who was one of our first employees at the company, and I'm curious to get your perspective. And Morley has been one of the greatest assets. And when you talk about a player, this is it. And so I want to actually direct that question to Morley. I'm wondering if you can come up here and answer that from your paradigm.
You can use my mic too if you want.
Yeah, the question was, what do we do internally to really help people scale?
No, for us to scale as a company, what are we doing?
Just a quick raise of hand, spread the vote. The sense, yeah. So we got people. We applied 100% the best of our ability the scaling framework, and that framework is found in the book. So I invite all of you to read it. There's 3 principles: your frame, floor, and your focus. When you raise your frame, exactly what Blake's talking about, raising your frame, your future so big that changes everything for you in the present. That is what we do, and then everything below that, everything that doesn't meet that threshold, employees, processes, systems, we strip it out and we only keep what's above our floor, and then we focus on those things that meet that threshold. So that's vague, that's broad, but I'm telling you, we completely apply this framework to what we're doing as a company. Over the past 7 months, it's worked pretty well, and we're going to continue with it.
Thanks, Morley.
Morley, you're the man. Let me add to that. Give it up for Morley. He's the best. I love that, man. Before we ever had revenue or a client, we set an impossible goal. And our goal was by the end of 2027, December 31st, to be at $120 million of annual recurring revenue. And that decision and that goal truly filters everything that we do and do not do in our company today. And so when we create systems that can scale and can exist at $120 million of revenue. When we create processes, SOPs, we're thinking to that end in mind. When we hire an individual, we don't hire them unless they can get us to that level, or unless they're that level of individual or talent or specialty or skill set that's needed or required. When we get opportunities that present itself, hey, we can collaborate here, we could partner here, we could have this, we could do this kind of product or add-on or upsell. If it doesn't get us to our goal quicker, then we say no to it. And so to add on to what Morley said, that is what it looks like today. And we're making so many mistakes and we're doing it so imperfectly. But we're quick to adjust, and we're quick to make our mistakes quick lessons and turn them into rights.
I love it. And I have to tell the story now that we called Morley up. Morley was my first assistant right when he got back from his mission. I'm glad that Blake thinks I have.
Thanks for letting us out.
Yeah. I had an A player at one point. No, I still do. But Morley's like turned into one of my best friends and like truly is an A player. But I think you guys met for the first time at a Beehive event, right?
Yeah,
In
year
this
ago
room.
today.
Yeah. Which is
So
wild.
grateful for Beehive.
Let's go.
See, networking's key.
I gotta put a little plug in there.
That's right.
Least, right. But I knew Morley was like a year rental. I knew his potential was insane. So like we talked about that from the beginning. It was a rental.
He was a flip.
Yeah, exactly. A quick little flip. And we golfed maybe a little bit too much. And now once he like could smack me at golf, I was like, yeah, Blake can have him. But anyway, so I had to throw that little blurb in there. But my next question for you, Blake, the scaling mindset, when does that start? In my vision, and I'm talking on a daily basis, is this come down to like your routine in the morning? Does this come down to like your routine after when you're with your family? Talk to me through that.
Tell me more what you mean by routine.
Do you apply the fundamentals of scaling to your morning routine and to your family life?
It's a good question. Oftentimes people try to take concepts and try to make them universal. And so the concepts that are written in the book, we know without a doubt work in business. It's a formula. If you plug it in, it works. And there's probably a lot of other areas that it would work as well. I don't know if we've gone to test them quite yet. So I don't necessarily use them with my wife or my kids or anything like that. I think the concepts are good. Think big, go for big goals.
And Blake, to clarify that question too, I worded it terribly, obviously. But does your morning routine influence how you show up for work in terms of scaling, right? In your family life, to be able to go at work and dominate, right?
There's nothing in my life that it is not influenced by our goal of getting $120 million in annual revenue. For example, when we set this goal, I was overweight. I got really fat and happy, really comfortable. And when we set this goal, I said, there's no way that we could get there if I'm just this overweight guy. And so immediately I had to figure out, okay, how do I get my health in order? How do I be a person physically that can get to that level? Spiritually, I've learned and grown more spiritually in the last 6 months than I have in the last 6 years, because I've needed God so much. And I hope when I don't need him, I continue to lean into him even more and more and more. And so, yes, that goal has absolutely transformed every aspect of my life, and leveling up and being the person that I need to be in all categories that can help get a company to that level.
I love it.
Can I share a thought that
For sure.
I've been studying on today on this? Is anybody a college football fan in here? Cool. Anybody a Bama fan? Roll Tide? Not a single one.
Let's go.
That's
We got the right room in here.
I love winners. So Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, and specifically Nick Saban is a major fan of mine. For those of you that don't know, Nick Saban, he retired a couple of years ago, but he was Alabama's head coach for years and years and years. He won 6 national titles, created 4 Heisman winners. I think his record was 260 wins to 29 losses. And so he's one of the most winningest coaches of all time in college football. And one of the coolest things about Nick is not that he won, but in how he won. And so I want you to consider and think about this example, but I want you to hear it and listen and consider this as you in your business. So Alabama, their goal was what? Win national championships. And so Nick Saban, as the leader of that organization, knew that if that was the case, his floor, you could say standard, had to match an equivalent to what produced national championships. And so if you look up Nick Saban, the thing that you'll find most common about him is people will say nobody had a higher floor standards than Nick Saban, and nobody kept them more. No one was more disciplined in keeping them than Nick Saban. To the point, let me read some of these off to you. To the point where some of the greatest college football coaches today have made commentary on it. So Kirby Smart, head coach of Georgia, one of the best college football teams today, said, Nick Saban's standards never change. It doesn't matter if it's practice, walk through the fourth quarter, or the offseason. He demands the same level every single day. Lane Kiffin, Nick Saban doesn't just set the standard, he keeps it. Every drill, every meeting, every rep, that's why he wins. Jimbo Fisher said, the best thing Saban does is never letting anything slide. Nothing, not a step, not a stance, not a detail. And eventually the players stop even trying to slide. Urban Meyer, at Alabama, the floor is higher than most teams' ceilings. And so to Tanner's question, how does it affect what you do? It affects everything. And if you actually want to accomplish it, it's not just about setting the goal. It's actually about setting the standards that are required in order to hit that goal. That's part 1. And then part 2 is rigorously defending those standards and making sure that if anyone or anything ever steps outside those standards, that it gets corrected and that you never, ever fall below the floor. The most costly thing that you can do is fall below your floor that is required for you to get to the goal.
Beautiful. And that's one thing I'll say too, like adding on to what Blake just said, there's not the only times that I've come close to hitting my goals is when my why was almost a necessity and my floor was a necessity. And that's shown up in different aspects of my life, whether it's moving to a new state, right? Like I went from Seattle to Utah, and if I didn't make a certain amount of money, like I didn't know how I was going to afford my mortgage. I didn't know how I was going to afford groceries. My floor was an absolute necessity for me and my family. And I far exceeded that because my why was strong enough. So I love what Blake's talked about, and understanding where that goal comes from is one of the most important parts for me that I've seen. Um, and the science of scaling obviously covers it from start to finish, which I absolutely love about that.
Don't let this guy lie to you, by the way. He hits his goals all the time. This is one of the most successful guys I know.
No. Anyway, so Blake, I'd love to hear the next steps for scaling.com and your partnership with Ben. What does that look like the next 3 to 5 years? Are there other books coming out? How is that going to stack with the current book? Talk to me about that.
So a little bit of context before I answer. I'm always giving context. Ben's last partnership, he wrote a trilogy with a man named Dan Sullivan. And that's like Who Not How, 10x is easier than 2x. Anybody read those books? They're phenomenal. If you haven't, add them to your list. His co-author, Dan, owned a company. And those books alone brought in $100 million of annual revenue to that coaching company. And so that was actually kind of like the premise of how this all started, where we had seen this proof of concept. And so we know that there's so much power in books. And we know that every great movement that's ever been created started with a book. For any of you that are religious, think about what is the main driving point of your religion. And for what I know, I think all religions, it's a book. And we take the same thought and philosophy. And so our goal over the next 2.5 years is to rigorously publish the most innovative thought on business strategy, and specifically thought that when applied creates scale. And so we're going to write 6 books between book 1 that you have in your hands, and then by the end of 2027. And we know that if we can truly be best in the world at creating the best thought that actually creates results, the rest will take care of itself. Simultaneously, we're building the business with the right people, processes, systems in place so that thought can be implemented into business owners. So something that's unique about our organization is a lot of education companies, they give you the material, whether it's a seminar, event, group coaching, whatever it might be. And we want to take it a step further because we're so committed to making sure that it's a results-driven program, is every single one of our members has a one-on-one coach who's an ex-entrepreneur, an ex-founder that has successfully scaled a business. And so it wasn't the most scalable thing to think about, oh, wow, like, okay, we got to go get this amazing talent. But it is the thing that separates us from what everybody else is doing out there. And so what we have to continue to solve is finding incredible people that can take this knowledge and help implement it into founders and into their businesses so that it can grow. We need to find people that can truly teach that, hold them accountable to that, and help force results. And then at the same time, we need to make sure that we create the best thought that actually creates results and spread that book and get it viral. And so those are a couple of the objectives in scaling.com today. And those are some of the goals that we have and that we're constantly solving for. And we've been so blessed, and we have such an amazing team to help make that happen. We've created a great foundation, and we're hoping to just kind of build on it.
I love it. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your guys' program, specifically a one-on-one coach. What other, for those that might apply to it, you guys have strict standards for who's even let in, right?
Yeah.
But for those that could maybe apply and get into scaling.com, what does that entail?
So everybody that gets led into our program, we're very selective intentionally because we want to make sure that the people that are in our program elevate everybody else in the program. And so we're intentional about who gets let in. And some of the metrics are you have to be the decision maker of the company, like in control of the scale of the company. 2, you have to be doing at least 500,000 of annual revenue. And so you're in the top 15% of businesses in the United States. And 3, you have to be fully committed to exponential growth, exponential scale. And so those are some of the main things to get led in the program. And so once you're in the program, you get assigned your one-on-one strategist, and that strategist is there to help you implement the framework and ideas in your business, hold you accountable to scale, and essentially kind of be a partner in your growth, a strategic partner in your growth, and help show you and expose maybe some of the areas that you're not seeing. Help show you where are the biggest bottlenecks, what are the things that you need to solve, maybe where you're thinking linearly, where you're not thinking exponentially, where you're going below your floor, where you're not holding your floor, so on and so forth. And then we have 2 group coaching calls a month. Those are guided by myself and Dr. Hardy, who's the co-author on the book. And every 6 months we do a in-person event. We have one of the best communities in the world. Like imagine we have just under 400 people in our community of the top 15% of business owners in the United States. And so the community is unbelievable. Who they're connected to, the just experience and skill set and the leverage that they have access to is incredible. And so revolutionary framework, one-on-one coach that's actually going to help you implement it, group coaching calls, community, and live events.
I love it. Okay, well, raise your hand if you learned something from Blake today. I certainly did. And
Thanks for having me. It's an honor.
yeah, give a round of applause for Blake, first of all. I mean, I would love to open it up to a Q&A. And if you guys are nervous about crowds and you want to ask a question, I am challenging you that there's no better time to get a question answered for your business than right now. So take advantage of it and let's dive into it. Who's got a question for us? Who wants to lead it off? Amazing.
I'm curious what it would cost for somebody that wants to do the program.
Yeah, great question. It's on the front page of our website. It's a 12-month commitment and it's $2,000 a month.
Right over here.
Hey everybody, nice to meet you.
Great to meet you, man. Good to meet you, Jake.
Question that I have, so when you're going through that process of where you felt like God was telling you to go a certain way and to have this partnership, what was that process like for you, and what would you say to somebody that's kind of in a similar process? And then second question to that, what was that, like those next stages of who you decided to bring in? How did you decide on that? And then I guess lastly, sorry, how did you basically know, like, what was your MVP, like what was going to be the thing that really set you apart? And what would you say to somebody has similar situation and just thinking through those things and thinking through about that?
Jake, we might need 2 hours, man. Those are good questions. Please tell me a little bit more about your situation with a little more context.
Yeah, I guess not to give it away too much, but so I was listening to your book when we were driving back from South Carolina, my family and I. We lived out there and then felt inspired to get back, and it really just lit me on fire and kind of was a catalyst to this thought process that I've had for a while. But I've had just, I feel like, strong impressions to start my own company, and kind of the basis of the company would be, you know, you test drive a car, why not test drive your career? And so it's kind of a combination of different things into that, but that's kind of the thought process behind it.
I love it. There's a book called Nail It Then Scale It I would recommend. We intentionally don't deal with startups because there's this thing when you're starting a company that is essential to have, which is called product market fit, PMF. And in order to scale, it must be there. And the best way to determine if you have product market fit is if there's demand for your product and people want to pay you money for it. And so step 1 is go determine if there's product market fit for that concept or what needs to be adjusted so that there's product market fit for that product. And the best way to determine that is go do it. Go do it to your audience. Go do it to your demographic. Get feedback. Don't get biased feedback. Get real feedback. Take it and then go get feedback again until you are to a point where people are saying, take my money. Take my money. How do I get this? Take my money. And so for us, I mentioned our proof of concept, our product market fit was that the books worked for Dan at a very, very high scale for Dan and Ben when they had written books from 2021 to 2023. And additionally, Dr. Hardy, who's unbelievable, I'm just blessed to even ride his coattails. He had been doing these challenges in 2024 where he ran over 3,000 entrepreneurs. Almo is one of them and his wife. They're amazing. I met them a year ago. Where that he had done these challenges and he had made millions of dollars on it. And over 3,000 entrepreneurs had gone through these challenges specifically on learning the science of scaling framework. And so we had 3,000 people prior to us ever starting this business, proving that there was proof of concept, proving that there was product market fit, proving that people were willing to pay money for it and people wanted more of it. And so if those things had never existed, I would have never said, yeah, let me pay $1 million. Let me do all these things and take crazy action. Let me sell my real estate portfolio. But because those things happened, because those things existed, it gave me the confidence to move forward and swing for the fences. And so I don't swing blindly. I just swing at the pitches I really like and I know that I can hit. Does that resonate in that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, great questions.
Michon, then we'll go over you.
How did you, I know you had his number in your phone.
Mm.
How did you have the guts to call him and have that confidence that you pitched this?
Beautiful question. And the answer for you is I was more committed to my future than I was to my fears. And so I was more committed to going and playing a bigger game, to impacting people, to figuring out a way that I can make a dent in this world or we could create something that really serves people than my fear of maybe being told no, or my fear of maybe looking stupid or being that guy that calls and says, hey, we should do a business together. And so, and it's cliche to say, but it's like, what is the worst that can happen at the end of the day? And so those are some of the thoughts that gave me belief and faith to step forward and make the bold claim. And I also just believe that the future belongs to those that ask for it. And I would say majority of people never get to the point where they actually ask for it. Thank you for asking that.
I love it. Alex?
How would you define an A player?
Beautiful question. I wish I could show you it. So there's a matrix that we've created. And what a matrix is essentially a quadrant of 4 quadrants. So if you guys can all picture this for me, there's 4 quadrants, left, right, left, right. And if you go to the upper right corner, this would be an A player, which is somebody with incredibly high culture and incredibly high results. Culture is aligned to the team, the vision, the mission, is more focused on the team and what's being built than themselves. And then whatever you're optimizing for your culture. Results are they bring capability, knowledge, and they go get it done. So if you're looking for a salesman, like he gets closes, he fills the pipeline, he brings results. So an A player is somebody that has high culture and high results. A B player is somebody that has one of the two. Maybe they're just an unbelievable culture fit, but they don't bring results. Or maybe they bring unbelievable results, but they're a low culture fit, which by the way is the most dangerous person to have in your organization. And then a C player is somebody that has 0 of the 2. They're a low culture fit and they bring low results. And so my friends, once again, if you are scaling, great talent is found, it is not created. And so A players exist. You just have to find them. You have to get in front of them. You have to be attractive enough for them to want to come and work with you. That helpful?
Good question. In the back, Brandon?
Yeah, I have similar to this question, but if I catch you, I'm at point in their business right now. that we're actually doing this. We're hiring other guys that's Q1, Q2, your areas SL, putting the business and trying to get that growing. My question, one of my concerns and challenges is finding that data player through interviews, through processes, within your company, and also what you recommend for someone like me, where maybe resources are a little bit high, where it's not, hey, let's make this massive salary board. It's not vision, culture, benefit. Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
It's a beautiful question. I've got two answers to it. Answer one is get creative with pay. So when we started our company, we have zero resources, right? So you have to get really resourceful. And so you can incentivize people in a lot of different ways financially. That could mean salary. That could mean bonuses. That could mean really high commission. That could mean equity. That could mean stock options. That could mean dividends, distributions. There's so many ways financially to slice the pie to make it make sense. And so our sales team, for example, guess how much they get in salary? $0. Commission only. They eat what they kill. And their commission's great. And so they get to participate in the upside. And so we actually try to structure, even when we do have resources, we actually try to structure pay like that as well, where the pay is tied to their performance, where their results that they're being hired for is directed to their pay, and they get to participate if they over deliver on those results. So if you're in a phase where resources are slim, just be more resourceful, be more creative. What's more important to them? Is it maybe a couple years down the road, setting up some way that they can get ownership, or setting up a way that their pay is going to scale dramatically as the company scales? And so also what you set up today doesn't have to be the same 3 months from now, 6 months from now. That makes sense? Second thing is pay is not only financial. It's very, very, very important to understand. There's so many ways to pay somebody. If you were to ask Morley, how has he been paid by scaling.com? My assumption would be he's been paid because he's been able to be around. Our CEO is unbelievable. He's bought, sold, scaled tons of businesses. He works with him on a daily basis.
How'd you find your CEO? I don't think we dove into that.
So our CEO, and by the way, Ty's the man. We served a mission together. He was our mission president. And so we were fortunate enough to bring him on, and he's a partner in our company. But that type of people Morley gets to go spend time with and learn from. That's a form of pay that's worth, you can't even put a number on that. Like I would do that for free if I was 21 years old. Another way to pay is just through network, connections, meeting people. We all know the phrase, how important your network is and how it's ultimately your net worth. And so you can pay people through network, you can pay people through development, you can pay them through learning, you can pay them financially, you can pay them culturally, environmentally. Just people by working in your culture, they could become better in all other capacities in their life. And so they could get paid in their life just by being around unbelievable people in an unbelievable culture, which pushes them to be better than they've ever been in their life. And so know that pay is more than just what's written on the agreement. It's the other things that you bring to the table personally or through a company that they get access to. And those things should be talked about a lot more. Yeah.
There's a question over here that I skipped over. Yeah, right there.
My question goes along here is, what questions or what framework do you use to hire your A players? I interview a ton of people, right? Everybody puts on a nice face in a interview room. I do need help.
Yeah, it's such a good question. And just one little small tactical thing. Everybody we hire, we put on a 90-day trial, period. Even our C-suite. And so that can be true. Someone can look really pretty in the interview, and then you wake up 2 weeks later and it's like,
Catfish.
man, yeah, I messed up here. So a 90-day trial for everybody. One of the things that's helped us is having an expert hire for that thing. So give you an example. I'm a sales guy. I'm a coach, trainer. And if you asked me to go hire a web developer or an IT guy, I will probably make the worst hires in the world. But if you ask me to hire a sales guy, I think I'm going to get really close to the target because I know what it takes. I know what it looks like. And so how we've been able to be successful at hiring is having the person that knows the thing hiring for that thing, and then being really rigorous on exactly what we're looking for and having a very high floor. For the department I'm over, over the coaching department. We have thousands of applicants that come in, and 97% of them don't even get to an interview phase, because we're so rigorous upon, hey, these are the things that have had to have happened for you to even be here. Here's what your background need to be. Here's the things that you need to experience, or the skill sets that you need to have. And then in the interview, we're then looking at skill sets, the non-tangibles, the communication, their ability to like be present, be engaging. And once again, those are more tailored because I've coached, and now I'm hiring coaches, and so I know what our members are looking for, and so I can hit closer to the target. Does some of that land? Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
Well, I don't know if my question for you or for your wife, but my husband and I, we work with entrepreneurs helping coach them and their spouses. So that's
So cool.
trying to bring
So cool.
spouses together in a unified goal, right? So I want to know like how it looks. Like you have 3 kids under the age of 3, right? Which kudos. Like I break up a number for it, but they're not that. That's crazy. So but anyway, I just want to know like what does that look like? How do you and your wife like? I don't know if her goals are the same goals as yours or if they're different, and how you like communicate and balance that. I guess that's my question for you.
If you'd like to share, please.
I'll share a little bit and then you add on to it. I think our goals have always been the same. When we first got married, like sat them down and essentially we talked about everything that we like done up everything and talked about everything that we wanted to do, and essentially said,
This is what it's gonna take to get there. And so while he's out doing the hard part, I'm at home supporting.
Doing the much harder part at home.
We coexist in that way. We both have the same goal, but we both have to execute a different way. Does that make sense? Or what would you say?
Yeah, there's just been full alignment from the beginning. It makes it really easy on me when I know that I don't have to ask for permission to take a call at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. Like it's amazing. I know that's not a luxury that everybody can have. And so alignment's essential. When there's misalignment in the marriage, it can be one of the biggest bottlenecks to your company's growth. And it's fine. Like I work with people where they have to clock out at a certain hour, and that's fine. We make it work. So I want you to reiterate your question because I had a thought that I lost.
Yeah. Just how you guys work together. How do you communicate and work together to accomplish your goals both jointly and separately, I guess?
The one thing I do really poorly at that I wish I did much better at, that my partners are so good at, is I wish I was so much better at bringing my wife along in the process. Hey, this is what happened today. We closed this deal. We made this big move. But sometimes she'll go like weeks without hearing anything from me. She learns from someone else. She's like, dude, why didn't you ever tell me this? And so I'm giving you advice off of my air. I don't do this, but I recommend it. Like involve them in the process, make them feel like they're in the business, that they are your partner in the business. And they're going to be like much more responsive to like, oh, hey, I got to do this, or I got to take this call, or I got to solve this problem, because they're invested. They know what's going on. One thing that's served us is we've applied who not how in our lives to help buy back some time. And so we've been fortunate. I've had an assistant since I was 21 years old. And so that assistant has been able to buy back time in some areas, and that leverage creates more capacity for me and more time for me. And we do the same with having a nanny that can come and help her throughout the day and some nights to help lighten that load. And so we try to apply leverage. I tried to apply who not how to create more capacity and a little bit more help where I'm not able, or I'm not very good at being as helpful as I'd like to throughout the day for her.
I also would say weekly planning in crucial, as it's even just, it's like either spouse is super busy. Every Sunday we have to sit down like, hey, this is what I have, what do you have, on the here, how you cook it. We did not do the MS. So weekly planning and sake for us, I feel like too. I hope they answered your fun.
So you did. I also, when we sold the first time, you talked about when it was just the two of us, you and a little interview. You talked about quality over quantity. Nope.
Quantity over quality.
Quantity over quantity with your timing. So I just want to take that on that. You guys did great.
Great question.
My wife needs to be up here more.
Yeah. All right, we got time for one last question before we wrap up here.
Coop, what's up, man?
Dude. I think my question is, I saw a Gary Vee video about this, that with so much talk about scale and AI, that's like one of the most important things going forward in a lot of aspects of life is not scaling. It's just like being super present and authentic with the people in your life. When it comes to that and in business, how do you make people feel like they're just not employee number 7, and that you're like, what's your cadence with meetings? What's your cadence with one-on-ones? What does that look like for you? Because you are an authentic person, but you don't want people to feel like you're just using it.
Such a great question. I've been considering this a lot, because what you'll find as you scale is you can do a lot less and less over time, right? The way that you spend your time when you're at $50,000 of revenue is a much different way you spend your time when you're at $2 million of revenue. And that has to happen in order for you to scale. And so one of the things that we try to be intentional about is nailing the one-on-one. And let me give you an example. Jesus Christ was here 2026 years ago now. And he had a 3-year ministry. And the majority of his time in that 3-year ministry was spent with whom? 12 people. How big is Christianity today? 2.6 billion today. 2.6 billion people follow Christianity today. And so never lose sight of what Coop said. Never lose sight of being authentic, being present, pouring into your people. I believe leadership happens in between meetings. And you should train your people so well that they can go work anywhere else and go dominate. But you treat them so well that they never want to. And so it's that constant balance. It's constantly doing that at scale. If I can no longer pour into my people how I once used to, because maybe it's a lot more people, or I have a lot less time, then I make sure that somebody can then fill that role from top down. So that role, no matter how big you get, 1,000 employees, 2,000 employees, that role always has to be solved and filled for everybody. Same for our partners. I have to make sure that my partners are checked on. Every single person has to have somebody that is checking in on them. Every single person in your company has to feel like they have someone they can go to. They have someone that's leading them, someone that's guiding them, and someone that has their back. And it might not always be you, but you just need to make sure that somebody covers you when that time does come, that it no longer can be you.